Hey everybody, it's Michael Becker, and I've got Christina, who is part of the Tinderbox Mastering 101 cohort number 2, and she had some follow-on questions from the class. We accomplished a lot in the class, but clearly there's some more learning that needs to be done. So I offered to do an extended session with her, and this is that extended session. So we're going to record it, and as Christina and I have just agreed, if something comes of value comes out of this dialogue, we will share it. So Christina, let's see if we can make something valuable come out of this dialogue. How about that?
That'd be wonderful, Michael. Thank you.
All right, so let me go ahead and I will get out of my presentation voice really quick. Sorry, I sound silly, but yeah, let me move some stuff off of the screen, and then I will get us ready to share. All right, come on. All right, so let me get back to where you are, your Zoom. And I'm going to get myself, since I'm in a formal teaching mode, we'll get Keycaster up and running now. That over on the screen. And we will launch our quick little course. So where'd my share button go? Share screens. Okay, so Christina's question is, she has a lot of competing thoughts, competing concepts, and we're trying to roll those up into a broader sense of how do we actually make sense of information that that we're collecting. So let's start with a blank file, Christina, and we'll kind of see how far we can get in the hour or so that we have together to make this work. And then based on some of the previous automations that I've done in class, I'll see if I can copy and paste some of those in. But generally speaking, you've got your blank file. And Christina, you've been talking about some generalized concepts in your research, and what you're trying to do is, and let's walk through that. So we'll start with a map. First and foremost, when you're working on Tinderbox, it's kind of a good idea not to start everything on root. And so when we talked about before, there's the 4 categories of notes: scratch notes, my projects, sometimes I call it my writings, my resources folder, and then there's the backstage. Right. And I tend to like to work in outline view when I do that. So we go like this, and I will go up to the file menu to add a separator here, and I'll just call this the backstage. Okay, and the backstage is where we're going to stick like the prototypes and the templates, all of the notes that are used for Tinderbox to function. My projects folder is where I'm going to be sticking my projects. My research, my scratch notes folder is where I'll have like my dumb ideas, half thoughts, uncurated stuff. Just basically my, another name I often will have for the scratch folder is the chum bucket, right? It's just that the stuff that we'll just throw in there and maybe feed to the sharks someday. And then we have our projects, and then down here we'll say we've got our projects. So and we'll call this one, because Christina's working on her dissertation draft 1, right? So we're kind of basically organizing out our structure. Now, Christina, as you're doing your work, and let's kind of do a back and forth dialogue on this so we can have this evolve. Because part of the value of Tinderbox that I've learned in this process is it's a tool for thinking. And we want that thinking to be able to evolve. So let's go ahead and start with some scratch notes, and we'll say basic idea map. Right, and I'm going to throw it up into the scratch notes because I don't generally know yet where this is going to go, and we're going to be kind of doing some exploratory stuff. So I'm going to double click on this little icon here, which then drops us into our breadcrumb, which you're seeing here, and now I can pop up into the map view and start using the map view tool to help us ideate in the thinking. So we're going to start out really quick and say there's this idea of system thinking. Do we call it system thinking, Christina?
Well, you can call it that for now, but my big thing is to to compare systems thinking to cybernetic thinking, which I maintain there's a significant difference, but proving that difference is challenging.
Okay. All right. So we've got these two concepts right on the bat: system thinking and cybernetic thinking. And and I guess this begs the question: like, are there elements that we need to be documenting or writing about these concepts? Like, what comes to mind as we're thinking about these two concepts? And we're kind of doing a this versus that kind of argument. So, what would the and again, in that context, you can use Tinderbox as kind of a visual to help you with that. So your argument is this versus that. And if and then one nice thing to when you're working in Tinderbox is we get so used to the convenience, conformance, and comfort of the prettiness of our output software that we get distracted when things don't look pretty or good. One of the things I try to instruct people to do is don't worry about it. Like at some level, don't worry about the, don't worry about the, how things look or how things feel and stuff like that. But if it helps you, you can see how I'm changing that. No, I don't want to do that. Let's see, normal. Let me go and undo that. And what I'm trying to do is make I don't remember how to make the interior go away. Oh, here it is, interior transparent. So you'll see here, basically, I've kind of given myself a visual of this versus that. Right. So let's start doing our mapping of our thinking. So what is cybernetics thinking? What is system thinking? How do we want to map that dialogue together, Christina?
Well, I think what I'm challenged with is to look at concepts that are currently well known in systems thinking, and then try to understand how they need to be either reconceptualized or redefined in some way so that they apply to the change aspect of systems, which is the cybernetic aspect.
Okay.
So you may take something like feedback loops and say, what does a feedback loop mean in a system versus system thinking versus cybernetics? And then, as we were talking about earlier, Michael, and how does that translate to praxis? Not just theory, but how would that translate to praxis? And it's only kind of once it gets to praxis that I'm particularly interested in the cybernetic side. And so, I may be finding interesting things about the literature, for the last 75 years has been talking about feedback loops, but it's only once in a while that they'll talk about, so what does that mean in terms of changing a system? How is a feedback loop different in a human system versus a mechanistic system? And so I'm just trying to keep track of these subtle differences and see how they come together rather than just have a whole bunch of notes that have come from all different parts of the literature and just have a hodgepodge, because quite frankly, I don't find in the literature what I'm looking for. I'm looking to come up with new interpretations and new meanings, but there's just so much data that I need a way of maintaining that relationship and seeing how it evolves over time. So I need to see if I make a note today and then tomorrow I have a theory of, maybe that should really change by 10% by going in this direction. I need to be able to keep track of my thinking as it evolves, because, well, I may change my mind or I may find something that I made a mistake. And, so it's this evolution of the notes to higher and higher levels of knowledge, I guess, or even plausibility over time. That I'm looking for a good way to use Tinderbox to keep track of that thinking. As you said, it's a tool for thinking, and I'm just trying to learn how to best to do that.
Right. So as we're brainstorming here, some things some things that are coming out to mind as we're talking about. So there are, and there's and when you're in the map view, there's concepts called adornments, and so you can create these adornments to kind of help you visualize buckets of stuff that we can deal with later. But these are kind of like my research questions. And these are what I'll call these over here. And I'm just copying and pasting. You can look at and these are kind of like my and if you hold the option key down when you're on the map view, that will help you select multiple things.
Okay.
And I can do over here, I can say this one we'll call like TBX mechanics. right? So I'm getting some mechanical questions like how do I evolve my notes over time? How do I need to be able to keep track of my thinking? So for me, this point here makes me think that we want to have some like concepts log, right? So you actually may want to generate this concept as part of your research as a concepts log,
Yeah,
right? So that says, okay, on such and such a date, I learned this concept, and then here's how that concept has evolved over time. And so
exactly.
you very well want to, and so on that note, and again, the nice thing with Tinderbox is you can bounce back and forth between the different views using the tabs. And so down here, what we actually may want to have is a fourth bucket of notes, and we'll call it, for lack of a better term, logging, and we'll call this a concept log, right? And so the core concepts that you're working on is systems thinking versus cybernetic thinking. And you may want to, and so these are the kind of core concepts that you're trying to track. And at this one, we could say like systems are one. And now that I'm starting to get into this concept, I'm like, oh, you know what? Now that we're starting to weigh in a little bit more, let's go ahead and create ourselves a note called P concept. And we'll create the idea. All right. So a concept would be like a light bulb for the fun of that. And we'll call it not start date, we'll call it lack for a better term, date revision. Okay, and so we're going to say this is a date revision. And so now, and again, we're going to use, and while we're at it, let's just quickly do this P folder, and we'll create ourselves a folder. And Christine, I'll give you this file when we're done, and you'll have access to the video too.
Thank you.
And we'll go ahead and we'll do an on add. And as we know, we want prototype equals P folder, or yeah, P folder. And then we say if name equals untitled. Hopefully I don't have any typos. Then name equals blank. We're just giving ourselves a placeholder, and we say type equals, give ourselves a placeholder. So we've got kind of like a placeholder for our on add capabilities. And so now we can go ahead and close this out, and we'll say this is our logging folder. We'll give it the P folder idea, call that a folder. And then on this one, we want to change this from P folder to P concept. And we'll give a what would be a good acronym for concept? CPT?
Theme?
No, just call it concept for now.
Okay.
So,
And
yeah,
just
theme could work too, but we'll come to that.
sure, no
So
problem. You have a typo in the prototype on the P concept, just so we don't run into a problem later. In the original prototype file, on the left.
yeah,
There you go.
okay. So
Yep.
and so now, and then these are systems thinking folder and concept folder. Okay, and so that way these two are folders, actually. That folder should have an on add. I wonder why. why I did that. Huh. Let me put that back in here. I must have deleted something as we were speaking. P folder. Erase that. Erase this. This happens when you move too fast.
So Michael, why are you using a P folder prototype for the folders and a P concept prototype? Because isn't everything that ever in the folder a P concept? So why do you need two types of prototypes here?
Well, I'm making one prototype for the folder,
Okay.
and I'm making now another prototype for the concept. So the on add is when I add a note to this P concept folder, its prototype is going to be P concept. When I add a new folder to the concept log, like I might have more concepts I create, it's gonna be a new folder,
Got it.
right?
Thank
So
you.
I'm just
Yep.
kind of nesting the programs, but I kind of use this structure and I put the on ads because then it makes it's a pre-templated version. Then it makes it easy for me to change as I'm modifying the models, right? And then I can go ahead and move this out and make that a P concept. So now we've got this concept. And so what are some of the other things that we want to know about concepts? Well, we may want to know about its version. So what know its version, and then I like that concept that you just brought up of there's themes, terms, other categories that get involved that come into that conversation. You and I briefly discussed that earlier. But like, so for this initial system thinking R1, we'll call this one version 1, and its date will be, and we didn't, and then again, the nice thing about Tinderbox is it's really forgiving that when if you need to change the type of an item, you can really quickly, and we'll call that now. So today, my R1 version of system thinking is this, and I can say, here's how I'm defining it, right? And one of the things that and again, I don't know how we want to map this together, but one of the things that you might want to do is in our resources folder, we'll call this a folder. And we'll go down here and we'll call this one primary literature folder. And okay, P article. I kind of like this one, honestly, because it shows multiple pages.
Yep.
And we'll call it okay. So when I now add a piece in here, and I must have spelled something wrong. I did. Here. Okay. All right. And so let's say this, study, I don't know, for lack of better creating, Becker, 2024, right, is the study that we're working on. And in that article, you'll have, maybe you've got author, date, publication, author, date, publication, citation key. And you'll come up with some other, and that will be a set, and that will be a date. And that will be, author. And again, part of the nomenclature, for me, I don't like to have authors versus author. I just say author and I make it a set. And so that way I can have multiple authors in the author bucket, but I don't like to use plurals because when I'm writing my action code, I get confused. Is there an S? Is there not an S? I just keep it singular. That facilitates and helps my action code. So up in here, so in this case, and maybe there's two people author in this one. It's Becker, it's Michael Becker, and it's just a minute. As one author and there, and let's say we did it. This was written in 2015. right? So that, you've got this article, and the citation key is going to key off the primary author, which is going to be at um,
Okay.
2015. So that's kind of, so that way you're kind of mapping that model. So then I go, okay, so that this article is, and as researchers, I actually name my article notes based on and this is, I find this incredibly annoying. You notice how it instantly eluded and created this place prototype in
Oh,
Tinderbox. Mark has designated this idea that at signs in names create a place and pound signs create prototypes. I
oh,
find that
okay.
incredibly annoying. I turn it off so that I can have at signs and names, and it's okay. And I don't want pound signs creating shorthands for prototypes, because for me, pound signs are hashtags or some other meaning that's a functionality that Mark's built in that I turn it off. So I've got this so we can delete these now. So I've got that article, and then under here, we might as well create P note. And under article, we've got on add prototype equals P notes. And again, you want Tinderbox to automatically do stuff for you. So you say, what date do we want to have here? We'll just call it date. I'm not being very creative right now, so I'll just say now. Right. And so we go here, we got a P note, we'll go here. Notes, I add this one. And actually I don't like that one. Do that one. And we want date note. What was the other? The other thing I put on a note. What did I put on the on? All right, so when I do that, and then the other thing is we want the on add date note. And so what we're doing here also is you're kind of automatically doing the setup for you. And so you want to say name equals NT for note plus citation key parent plus space plus date note. So when I do that now, and I'm adding a note to this, I'm actually getting, here's a note for Comeau, blah, 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 and the date is now. And so we've got to fix that. Why did that on add? Date equals now, and is this a date? Date note should be a date. That's why that didn't work. So if we do it again, so and then you'll see how the full date's kind of done here. We don't really want that. So we'll go in here and we say, and I find if you go to the system attribute and you say on add, make that like 3 characters long. That way we have got some extra space to do this. And we say date note equals date now dot format. Okay, and that what that does is that formats the date with just the short dates. So now if I screw that up again, equals that works. So if we do that, all right. So I've got the name of the article that I just gave a note on, the date and the time that I take that note. And so as I'm reading the article, I can take notes, right? So that's part of how I'm taking notes when I'm doing research on a particular article, right? And then that allows this. And then the other thing we want here is we'll say citation key. So, and we'll do this one for the on add. And so you can kind of see as we think, we let Tinderbox involve with us. So we say $ citation key equals $ citation key parent, right? So I'm going to grab the parent, the citation key from the parent when I create this note. So now that didn't work. So I got a typo clearly. So citation key. It should work. Let me see. If I have a key, I've got citation key Comeau. Once more. That clearly is working, so I'll put that one here.
So you have a, okay.
I've got a typo in here somewhere. I'm not seeing it.
Well, I'm just wondering, I don't know action code very well, but at citation key on the first line, you have a plus inside the quote at the beginning and then another plus inside the quote at the end. Are those pluses supposed to be inside the quotes?
No, they're not in the end. They're actually, you mean right here?
Yeah, yeah.
They're not inside the quotes. There's two
okay.
quotes there.
Oh, I see. Okay, sorry.
And there's two quotes here. Well, I don't know why this one's not working. Just a minute. Let me write this down. It should work. So I'm on Comeau, prototype and P-note, date. Dollar date. It's failing there. And so that's
Okay.
right. And then note name, format L, and citation key equals citation key parent. Let's try one more. So annoying. Citation keys is set. This is another way to kind of test when something like this doesn't work. What you do is you create yourself a quick little stamp and test it. Right? So that code works. So it's not the problem. It's somewhere up in our stamp that's causing the problem. So maybe just out of curiosity, let's put it up here and see if the problem's happening from it. And I bet it's right there. Yeah, I think okay. So the problem is that I had a single apostrophe and not a double quote.
Oh,
for the date. So I think now that works. Okay. So, all right. So again, that's just how you kind of it can be annoying, but and if I slowed down a little bit, I wouldn't run into those kinds of problems. But my brain just doesn't work that way. So now you can start taking notes on the episodes. And okay, and one other thing we might want to do is we might want to add. We might want to add a number or a revision because we can't really distinguish between this date and that date. So you might want to add the time.
Yeah.
But and we can look that up right now, but I don't want to. So you could modify that little L there by looking up an ATB ref, and that will determine how the date's being formatted. So now you can be taking notes about that article, capturing them into individual concepts. Now, how do we refine that even further? What you could say is, term, category, and theme, right? So we're going to create 3 more sets. Okay, so that when I'm taking this note is on systems. And that one is on.
Yeah, okay.
Right, so I now have 2 different notes about the concepts. Right, now what I want to do as part of this, let's go ahead and create ourselves a, let's add in the hints folder. And we did go over this in class, but we can do it again really quick. Okay, and that what I want to do here is I'll get down to the, and I'm just going to make a simplified version of this. We'll go create term. And actually what we can do, because I've shared this before, share it again with the classes, let me pull it up from one of my existing files so I don't have to reinvent the code on the fly. And this is one of the great things. Once you have developed and you've built yourself a a set of practices,
Yeah,
right? You can and you've got some consistency in how you do things. You can just copy and paste code you have from different Tinderbox projects, and it automatically works. So let me go to my P page. We'll grab this, and now I typically would do this. Let's just do it right. I'm gonna do this in an on visit P note, and we'll say if prototype does not equal, if prototype equals false, then and that, right? So the reason why I do that is I don't want this on visit to trigger when on the prototype. Okay, and so now I'm putting in some function coding here that's basically saying grab the term and anything in the terms folder, produce a term note for me. So watch what happens now if I go and on the rule or on the on visit, I say on visit stamp. So I'm basically saying when you visit this note, when you click on this note, trigger the stamp code that's in this on visit. So now watch what happens. If I go to here and because that's a concept here. If I go to the note, let's see if I've got the code working properly. P visit note. I'm on P visit note. P visit note. Let's make sure our on visit's working properly. And that function's there. So functions proper. I've got P note. I've got a term up here. That's a term. Okay. When in doubt, that not working. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure the mechanics are working so then we can get on with our job here. If prototype equals false, trigger that function. The function is there. And let's do this just to make sure. but it's not the stamp that's causing our problem. Go to P note and stick it in a rule real quick. Okay, so it is the stamp that's causing our problem. And I spelled resources folder wrong up here. Go. Okay, and you'll see this note automatically created the two terms for me. Right, so that's the other way we're having Tinderbox automatically help us with our work. So when I'm here, I can now hit Command 7. I can look at this. I can pop this up while I'm doing my work. I can define what I mean by the term systems thinking, close this, and I'm now starting to create my lexicon and glossaries of thinking as I'm going through the process. Right?
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
one of the concepts that we need to ask ourselves, though, is systems thinking a term, or is systems thinking a theme? Or is it both? You know, and is system thinking a category? And I actually think it probably is all three, right? But you need to then think about how does that, and let's go here too. Why is my on stamp? If prototype, did I not spell it properly?
Yeah, I think it's important that I do create kind of a working taxonomy of these
Yeah,
terms.
that's part of the process
Yeah.
that I try to convey when we're doing this. The taxonomy and the lexicon, the words matter. And the taxonomy and the lexicon and the terminology and all of this really matters. So let's try to build this up on the fly though. So if we can do here and then prototype, let me just make sure I do a time check here. Sorry, I've got to get my mouse back on the screen. All right, I'm good. Okay, so that's spelled properly, right?
Yeah.
All right, I don't know. Let's just take this off real quick and just make sure this does work. So if I go up here and I type in another theme in this note, we'll call it test. All right, and I click away, then the test is getting created, and it's getting created as a folder, which is because I don't have a so if I go here and I go P term, let's give term for you will come up with better ones later, but now if I go ahead here, well, this one test. Okay. Right. So I'm now getting my my terminology, and you'll see how this is linked to that. So I can actually see which notes these terminologies link to. So it's helping me build this graph of concepts that makes sense. And I also provided in the course material unlinking code. So if you go back through our course and go back from some of the templates I provided through the course, you'll grab that unlinking code that you can use to manage this concepts. Now, as we think about it, and again, let's continue or evolve our thinking, we're also going to have these ideas called categories. And we're going to have a concept called themes. Okay, now help me with this a little bit. So is systems thinking a theme, or is it a category?
I would call it a category.
Okay, and what would be the theme overall?
Oh. That's a good question. I'm trying to think of something that would be a hybrid to both systems and cybernetics, right?
Yeah.
It's funny that the systems is like a theme, but there's a there's a higher order thing that says everything is a system, but then when you go down, there's actually a subcategory of system within system, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with this kind of nomenclature all the time. So
this is what it takes to become the doctor, right?
Thank you.
And And exactly, and I've been through this, and it took me 21 years. So I feel your pain, right? The point being is this is the obligation of our work
Okay.
is to come up with and let's say this is going to be okay. Let's do that for categories. Let's do that for themes or for terms, and we'll do that for themes, right? So we've kind of got our iconic view
Yeah.
of all of that, and these are going to be categories, and we're gonna go P category. Category. Okay, and then this is going to be P term, 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 and then this one is going to be P theme. Okay, so we're kind of getting ourselves set up now, right? So let's not use these terms, system thinking, as because they're categories. So on P note, what we might want to do is category and theme. Oh, we already had it there. So then what we can do is let's remove that from here. We go to our on visit, and let's do the same thing now. But we're now going to say category. Because what you're trying to do for your research is you're trying to pull out and tease up these concepts and go from all of that noise in the primordial soup up to bird, right? And then from bird up to animal, right? And then to be able to kind of go up and down that chain as you're trying to tease out these ideas.
Yeah.
Do we generally agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm trying to go from male red-winged blackbird to bird to animal to,
Right, right. And the problem is if you try to do this in Excel, if you try to do this in PowerPoint, if you try to do this in Word, if you try to do this in any other tool, it's a fucking nightmare, right?
yeah.
Tinderbox is the only tool I've been able to find personally that makes this work, right? So essentially then let's delete these term notes here. So I've got, so as we've been having our dialogue, we've got this concept, these term, and again, these are going to be categories. So, and you'll see here where we're using Tinderbox to help us evolve our thinking. And then as our thinking evolves, we invariably may need to make some adjustments.
Yeah. No, I can see how you're building that using a taxonomy. And also I notice how you're kind of making sure the title of each node is such that you're not going to get lost when you read it. That seems really
Right. And
helpful.
the title is unique and all of that. And
Yeah.
and in the writing, I have a whole methodology I called short title that will remove this prefix. So when I make reference to that in my writing, I only get the word system thinking. I don't actually get the prefix. So
Yeah.
because that's the whole part that comes out of the templating of this as well, which we can
Yeah.
and I can give that to you really quick and just show you.
Yeah. And I can see that once we've got something, so if we're looking like in the primary literature folder, once I start looking at something and updating it, I can just use a timestamp as a way to keep the version control, and then they'll just sort of
Correct. So
as soon as I expand a concept, I make that concept into a container that then has versions inside that container. So yeah.
Correct. Correct. You're absolutely getting it. And again, yeah, I don't want to be overly pedantic, but this is this is how I figured it out. If you along the way find a better way, go for it, right? But
Yeah, I
from
think I was
my efforts of playing around with this for the last few years, this has been the best way I've been able to make this happen. And then if we go
yeah,
back up to where were we doing that? Oh, I didn't want to put that here. This
once
code.
you've got that sorted, Michael, could you just quickly show me what all of this does?
Hang on, before I forget, I gotta fix something real quick. This one's go here. Okay. And then I need to make one tweak to we're on note. So that means my display expression. There we go. Okay. And let me just fix this across the 4 notes and then I'll answer your question.
Sure.
That's going to go there. That's going to go there. That's going to go there. And then for the sake of, we're going to copy this. We can use the same code. We'll call this one P term. P. And then I can go here and go to my on visits and say stamp P term. Grab this one. And I'm going to go up here. Stamp. Here. I'm going to grab this one. Let's say stamp. Okay, so now what I've done is I've basically set up my architecture. So let's say and then I'll let you answer your question in just a second, but and then I've got a VName issue. So what did I do wrong? Because I didn't bring over my variable. Okay, yeah. So let me go fix that here in this code here. This should say for lack of a better term right now, VName equals name. It'll be variable string there. And there is some optimization I can do along the way, but that's good. So now if we do that, did that not work? Oh, and we have to do it here to P-note. There we go. Good. So essentially now what we've done is I've created this short title concept. So let's say I want to pull the name for this note systems thinking here, and up in my writings I'll do that up here in the writing example. I can say value short title that note.
Mm-hmm.
So now I could say blah, 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 and then go up to the window and go to share. And when I hit preview, make sure short title, I gotta freaking learn how to spell. And let's make sure that note actually has a short title, that the code's actually working. Because I made short title a Boolean. Well, I didn't actually make short title. That's the problem. Okay, so now if I click away, so that's telling me that nothing's coming up because that note doesn't have a short title, and let's double check it's on visit. And that note doesn't have an on visit, so I clearly didn't save the on visit stamp like I intended to here. So on visit P story. All right, so now, so you see now it's got a short title. So now
Okay.
if you go up here and I run it, system thinking,
Ah,
right? So I'm able to pull the values of the attributes from other notes into anywhere in the document, and where that's really going to come into play is through templates. And when you're writing your output and you're publishing your output. So now,
okay.
I'm sorry, now go back and answer your question now that I got that fixed.
Okay, so got that. My question was completely different. Can
I
you
know
show
what. Yeah.
can you show me what this looks like in map view? Because in my file, I do all this stuff in outline view and I go to map view and I can't see anything.
Yeah, because it looks like crap in map view. Now here's what people don't understand about map view. Okay. Let me show you what this looks like in map view. It looks like this. No,
Oh,
this,
oh, okay.
right? So what you need to understand is map view only looks at a container. It doesn't look at your whole document. And so if I drop down into resources, here's what map view looks like,
Which
right?
is just it just shows you what's in the container.
It just shows you the containers, right? So if you're doing, and again, tomorrow Chuck is going to be giving his view on how to do diagrams
Mm-hmm.
in Tinderbox. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be amazing, but I'm telling you right now, it's for me, it's way too complicated. I've got a much easier way of doing diagramming in Tinderbox that I'll be teaching in a couple of weeks myself, right? But let's have Chuck do his thing. But here's the thing. So up here we had in our scratch note up here, we had a map view. So let me demonstrate this to you a little bit. So if I go ahead and I right mouse click on this folder, so we open it up in a new tab. So I have this new tab here and I hit map view. Here is the map view that we developed earlier. Okay. Now watch what happens. So now you see here, I'm just getting the map view of the basic idea. So if I go to the scratch pad now, right, the map view of scratch notes folder is just the basic idea container. If I drop in a new scratch, and I now go to this folder, I'm going to see there's a new scratch. So map view is just the containers within a note. Now watch what happens here though, and this is where people get really confused, and researchers like us freak the expletive out when we spend all of this time, energy, and effort creating a really pretty map view, and then we accidentally do this. We accidentally move our stuff out. And then when I pull it back in, and I go back to my map view, all of the alignment that we had before gets messed up,
Ah,
right? Because like if I go here and we're going to align all this pretty stuff and we do this and this is our alignment, and then we make the mistake of accidentally moving our stuff out of the map view and then pulling our stuff back in to the map view. And then we go back to basic idea and in that case, it actually worked. But the challenge is you don't know where so the relationship between outline and map view is not as tight as you think.
okay.
Right? Map view only maps to notes within one container, and if you start moving stuff in and out, you run the risk of your map not getting. So let's kind of do this. So let's say we do this kind of relationship here. These are like this. See if I can break it in the way I intend to. And then I go back here. Outline view. Go back here, and let's say I move system thinking out. And so now I go back to my map view here, and I look at it map view, right? And so you now see system thinking is out, and that this is pointing to the note systems thinking.
Okay.
Because it got moved out of the map view. So now if I go back and drop it back in, it's back in, but it's actually nowhere near where I had originally placed it on the map.
Okay.
Because Tinderbox kind of lost its association when I went back and forth. And you could jump through some nasty hoops to figure that out. So the point being is when you're, and again, when you're writing a map view, but here's the rub. The map that you're trying to convey, the concepts cross multiple containers, not one. And you don't, and as an author, what you're trying to do, and this is what I've been trying to convey for people for a long time. As an author, you're trying to do some level of nesting hierarchy so that it's not just this jumbled mess like my garage.
Yeah.
So you want some structured order, but you don't want too much order, right? So that notes become discoverable. So what you end up wanting to do, and I started talking about this in the last session. One of the ways to create a like that diagram that you might want to do as you're diagramming your thoughts and your ideas. We'll create this one. We'll call it diagram view. Right? For me, one of the better ways to create that diagram view, if you will, is to run an agent. And so we're going to say P agent. And we'll say we'll say agent action. Whoops. Agent priority, agent query, agent key. And no, we need that one. Agent cleanup. That's the one we want. Okay. And I automatically, for me, I go the second I start doing this, I go into the system attribute, I go to cleanup, and I set the default for agents to none. So what that means is when an agent runs and pulls aliases from a search, it doesn't clean them up. It doesn't reorganize the aliases into a grid or into anything like that. So what that means is any note that I discover using an agent, I can then use the map view of those aliases to create the diagram that I want. And let me show you what that means. Right. So let me come back to that in just a few seconds. So let's keep modifying our thinking. So we've got two categories. So give me a couple terms that would be related to systems thinking and category thinking. I think you said one was earlier was what? Not logging. What was the concept you used?
Just called feedback.
Feedback loops. Right. And feedback loop referred to p-term. Where did p-term go? Did I lose my p-term? Here it is. See, that's why I don't want this on the term. Okay. So p-term we want it's going to have themes and categories. And again, there's ways to automate this for yourself. So as we said here, so let's go do this really quick. So the term doesn't need to self-reference itself, and the category can do that. And we don't want to be automatically creating themes from categories. I'm fine creating categories. I don't want categories creating itself. I'm fine with categories creating itself, but we need themes and themes. And this will make sense in a minute, right? So what I'm essentially going to say here is feedback loop is related to which one? System thinking?
Sure.
Was related to let's see what happens there. Okay. And you'll see automatically by typing the word system thinking in here, my code is automatically linked to category system thinking. So I now
Okay.
have a term that's related to category system thinking. And what would be the theme? What's the overarching theme of all of this?
I don't know, just call it theory or something, or meta theory.
No, but many theory of what?
The meta theory of system change. System change.
System change. So how about social system change versus
Sure.
yeah, because there's social system change, and as I heard you talking about it, there is another theme is social system change.
Yeah.
And the other one you had was like a computer system change or
Mechanistic system change.
right. So this is a big part of your research, right? So
Yeah.
your big part of your research is how do we are making this distinction between mechanistic and social system change. And then my literature review, I'm going to say there's two types of system changes. There's mechanistic system changes and there's social system changes. I'm only talking about social system changes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And here's a paragraph or two that defines mechanistic system changes. Now let's push the rest of that off later. And people can deal with that later. So now we can go here and we can actually say that for our purposes of order, we go here and we say okay, on categories, we don't have, categories, we want themes. So now if I do that and if my code works, right, you'll now see that, okay, you'll now see term feedback loop has been related to the category. And it looks like my code for theme on the category stamp is not working. So let's look at the on add. On add be category. Category, so it's spelled properly. And we say, and this is why. So categories are going to produce, are going to go to categories folder. No. Theme. Themes folder. P theme. Theme. So now if I go back here, so you'll see now, let's go up the tree of logic. A term is, I've got a term feedback loop, which is related to the category system thinking. The category system thinking is related to the theme of social change.
Okay, got it.
Right? And so now I can start going up and down the tree. Now here's where it gets really cool. Now let's watch this. I open this up into a new tab. I pop this over into hyperbolic view and I start making my little checkboxy things here. And now I can start using hyperbolic view to say, all right, how are these notes related? Term social theory is related to the category of system thinking is related to that particular piece of research.
Now we're talking.
Right?
Yeah.
And now this category system thinking is related to that piece of research and that term.
Okay.
Right? And then it just starts mapping out and you kind of let it evolve and you kind of let it grow. And then as you're doing your writing, you are defining this stuff as you go.
Yeah.
Right?
So this is really interesting because the hyperbolic view is what I want, but I thought it was map view, but it's actually
hyperbolic is what you want.
Structure. It's hyperbolic view.
Right. But you get that same thing in map. But what the difference is, hyperbolic view gives you a map view across the piece.
Yeah.
From linked associations.
Yeah. Michael, I'm going to have to go, but this has been tremendously helpful. I'm going to look forward to the file so I can understand the action code.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And there's so much more we could do with this and all that. And do you think this was worthy enough for us to share with the community? Did we accomplish our goal of actually having made progress?
Yeah, I really think as soon as I saw that hyperbolic view, I went, that's it. That's what we were trying to accomplish.
Eureka! We've got it.
It was
Okay.
that was the eureka moment. That was the cherry on top of the ice cream sundae.
Yeah, and there's so much more we can do with this. And then again, as you know, I published my entire 451-page dissertation out of this.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we can make that work and just trust in the system, trust in the process. Okay,
Okay. I
wonderful.
look forward to getting
Good
the
luck.
file. Thank you.
Good luck. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Okay.